Today it's going to be a bit of a kind of reconsideration. It's just also based on, in case you didn't see, I did a Twitter, I put a Twitter thread recently where I was kind of talking about my experience on exploring this whole Web3 thing recently here, where I really kind of, at the end, just to summarize, it's like I really kind of realized that this is definitely, the whole Ethereum thing is like, seems to be a bit contradicting in terms of what the mission is, and in this whole thing with decentralization and whatnot. And like I don't know, I don't want to maybe dive into this. You can just read the thread on your own. But basically, I was kind of like going through a bit of a mental crisis, right? In terms of what am I really doing? It's been I don't know, like 3 years already, I think, where I started the whole thing with quantum computing, and then moved into building some kind of quantum computing simulator thing, which is kind of also half done, not even done. Need to rethink a lot of this stuff, then learning quantum mechanics from scratch, and kind of like, and I realized this is in a way sort of a flaw that I've seen happen to myself in the past, where I start with something concrete and then really quickly tend to kind of try to go meta, or try to kind of go like in a more abstract way. It's like, oh, we could do this, or we could do that, we could just help everyone do these. And like, in a way, it's happened with this whole tangent on the Web3 thing, where I was like, oh cool, so I'm doing these videos and it's nice about quantum stuff, and maybe we could build some kind of incentive system so that others would do that, and then we would have this data to kind of train AIs and whatnot and stuff like that. But I don't know, I'm kind of like going back and forth in my head. It's like, and this is probably the struggle of doing something for so long, and that kind of, you consider sometimes yourself, like as in like, does this make sense? All the stuff that it's going on, like what's even the value that this is bringing? Like, does it bring anything personally, other than just personal kind of growth? With it, at the end of the day, well, that's probably super valuable, right? I remember I set out like for 2022 and to kind of achieve at least these, right? Close the quantum mechanics from scratch course by doing the graduate level exercises and kind of learning from that, from there, and then being able to answer a Stack Exchange quantum mechanics questions. And like there's like a constant struggle in me, as in like trying to do something long term that is just exploratory, just enjoying like the kind of learning journey. And then that thing of like, I want to really kind of build something interesting, right? The problem is I don't know what is it, right? It's more like, and that's kind of what's dangerous, because then you're getting into this kind of weird tangents. And I even almost forgot about the whole entanglement simulator thing, where I'm like, man, actually that's definitely a project that I shouldn't give up on, and I should really try to approach again. And so I think what I wanted to say is that I think I'm almost like, kind of correcting a bit the path and going back at sort of the original idea, which I was gonna anyway, right? It's just, it feels like this past 2 or 3 weeks have been focused on this Web3 stuff that was a bit tangent, and maybe it distracted me too much on of sort of the the goal, which is like, I'm doing just researching and learning quantum mechanics, right? But it's funny because it's a bit this kind of, why am I doing it, right? Like, what is the purpose of these? Which I guess I'm curious to know, like, how do just professional academic researchers deal with this? Is like, is it that you have your own personal goals in terms of what you want to research, what you want your contributions to be, or what is it that you're looking for in that, right? And how do you, in a way, how do you, it's not about monetizing, it's not about capitalizing, but yeah, kind of in a way, like, what do you, what is it that makes it feel like it's worthwhile, right? Because it's this kind of like other approach to these where it's like building stuff, industry, whatever, and then this research feels like it's just more for the sake of it, and that's kind of something it's super easy to struggle with, or to kind of end up just struggling with. So I think definitely one of the things that I just want to get rid of is all this kind of stuff. I mean, again, like the whole thing with the Discover Seeds collection, I think that was a nice idea, but I don't know, I kind of lost a bit of, I lost the, not the trust, but I kind of lost a bit that love for Ethereum and the NFTs kind of thing, and all this kind of stuff, right? If you read that, you'll see that it's a bit more like, you know, blockchain native stuff for the win, right? As in like there's going to be a reason for these, right? Bitcoin, it's not about decentralization, it's about actually the currency, right? And then the blockchain implementation is just, it happens to be a way that you can implement that, right? But it's not so much about that specifically. It's about like a currency that doesn't have like, you know, a controlling central entity. Same with Filecoin, right? It's like cloud storage done properly, like fully decentralized in a peer-to-peer way, and you know, with the proper financial incentives on top of that. And I was extremely happy to see that as I learned more about these projects, that they are not really built on Ethereum, right? They're actually built on their own blockchain, and because that's the point. That's the point. It's a very specific thing that you're doing. So yeah, I think what the hell? So I think I'm just gonna abandon all this stuff and literally, like, you know, you want to support this project, you know what, just get in touch. Get in touch. I don't know if I can open DMs. I would like to, but I don't know. Get in touch via Twitter. How do you do that? So yeah, the same thing with the Discord server. I don't know. Strange Works. What do I even have in there? I have a bunch of things. Oh god, I even feel like bad about these now. So can I just log in and get rid of these stuff? I don't want it in German. I know you're detecting German is my browser language for some reason. Getting started. What are the posts? Posts are here. So we want to get rid of these. Yeah, okay, cool. That's cool. And what else do we do here? Research notes, that's all okay, that's all fine. Perfect. So we're gonna commit the changes. And what about the roadmap? The roadmap stays the same, right? So I really want to focus this year on closing these, and then next year kind of, you know, go through the Wolfram Physics project, kind of get a bit of more an updated version of these to see what they've been up to, do a thing with the entanglement tool and see whether we can move it forward, and then maybe bring back query puzzles and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm also not so sure about these. I'm like kind of tired of this kind of gamification of things in a way. So I might as well just delete that. It's a roadmap. So I'll probably actually delete that as well. And then superdeterminism, yeah, definitely quantum field theory. Yeah. These are definitely interesting stuff. Let's see how that goes, to be honest. Like I even feel like, you know, how to even get back to these. I have been doing some exercises. So I was going through these exercises. And I was doing the God, I almost forgot about everything. The free particle thing I was doing, and so I did. No, I mean, yeah, that's what I was working on, because I was working on. Oh yeah, I was working on. That's also the reason why I had the replit thing, right? I was working on sort of, you know, getting my hands on using SymPy to solve some of these problems, to kind of like basically work around the more mechanical part of the maths itself, right? As in, it's important to know the mathematical concepts, but it's like I you know, it's maybe not so relevant for me, as in like how to solve a specific integral or something like that. So I think understanding why an integral on a concept makes sense is super important, but like solving the integral itself is maybe less relevant for the purpose of all these. And then that's why I actually ended up doing that. You're right, my repls. So we had the ANSYS web stuff, which, you know, I'll just probably get rid of, delete. And then we have the TensorFlow test. We'll get to these at some point. God, 3 months ago I started this. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like essentially, you know, essentially it's about. What the fuck is? Are they just gardening that loud? This is so bothering. That's what I was doing here. Yeah, basically doing the trying to do all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and then seeing what happens. But let's think. Let me, like, I don't feel like doing the exercises right now, probably tomorrow. I kind of want to try to mentally walk myself through decisions and through like what am I really doing? Like, it's a big struggle. You can't imagine, like, it's even hard for me to kind of, you know, put that, like, just like talk through that as I'm thinking about this, right? Because I've invested so much time in this project, and it's, at the end of the day, you kind of need that, like, you know, somehow motivation, right? Like, why is it that you're doing that? I mean, the only reason, to be honest, that I keep working on this is just because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy that feeling of you're sort of exploring new territory, right? Like you're kind of going deep in some aspects, going wide in some other aspects. You're kind of trying to. It's a bit really like, you know, an analogy to physical exploration, right? Discovering a new world and whatnot, but more like in terms of, you know, the knowledge and nature, right? And so you're kind of diving into these problems, learning about some of this kind of like bizarre connections between things and mathematical representations and things like these. And this just I guess it's there's no real clear goal yet, other than, you know, maybe I should be a bit more geared towards the entanglement stuff, but I probably shouldn't, you know, make sure that I kind of built up enough of the basics. And I think that's why going through this book makes a lot of sense. Maybe what I should also do is kind of, you know, read a bit through these exercises. Maybe that motivates me a bit more about everything in here. We did the wave function stuff. This is about a free particle. And here we learned about, we're working on the normalization stuff, we're working on the probability density. So we're working actually on the momentum and the position kind of changes of bases, and understanding why there's a relationship, why there's this kind of like Fourier transform relationship. That was back before I started this whole Web3 tangent, indeed. I don't know. I feel a bit more, as I said, just like kind of sitting back and thinking about really what is it that I'm doing and why it makes sense. I like and I find it super hard to kind of do this live on stream, but maybe that is, the way to unblock that clear thinking. Maybe let me indeed just read through the thread. Why not? Maybe that helps me get unblocked a bit mentally. And if you hear a baby crying aloud, he's fine. His mother's taking care of him at the moment. Exploring this Web3 land has taken me through quite an interesting internal journey that in a way has taken me through quite some dark corners of myself. I believe this is what's happening to you as well with all these contradictions. That was a reference to Vitalik's thread on like what are all his current mental contradictions. One thing I think I learned is that deep inside I've been confused. There's some kind of law for small things that make a whole, but that's not really a law for decentralization itself. And in fact, I think if Web3 has shown me anything, is that I hate kind of decentralization. Maybe these words are like quite harsh, like now in hindsight, but it's really kind of, that's really how I felt while I was writing these. Even as I write this, I'm doubting myself. This is one of the worst feelings ever, but I feel like if I figure these out, I will have grown considerably. And so what are the things that made me think I hate decentralization? I feel like in a decentralized society, you wouldn't even have something like an Elon Musk force driving us away from stagnation. It almost feels like a decentralized system does not have an intrinsic objective function, and it lacks the incentives to evolve. It feels conceptually stagnant. It's funny because I always thought I'd love decentralization, but it turns out I've been probably massively confused, and I simply love autonomy and individual power. But power that has space to grow, break, and evolve. So Bitcoin is at least useful as it is a concrete instance of a tool that has purpose. Satoshi created a trustless currency, end of the story. In contrast, Ethereum feels like that unnecessary abstraction, a contradiction in and of itself. I guess what's going through my mind is that Ethereum feels more like an attempt to centralize in a meta level sense, right? Blockchain-based applications. So rather than anything else, right? I mean, you want to build some cool, trustless, decentralized application that does whatever cool shit you have in mind, just build it on your own blockchain. That's why I think it's like, essentially, it's like, what's the difference between these and AWS? They say things like, oh yeah, we depend on AWS and whatever, and things like that, right? But essentially what Ethereum is doing is like you're building the same, just in a decentralized way. I guess maybe the selling point is that assuming this works well, it's much more difficult for this to go down. You can't censor stuff, but we've seen a lot of the stuff, like we've seen that doesn't work so well, right? Because when things go wrong, there's a lot of the outside blockchain world that actually can still just, gate you out of the Ethereum network and do things like that, like OpenSea and whatever with the NFT tradings and things like that. This is all, this is definitely going to be a challenge. But then I kind of in a way struggle, and I might be totally wrong, and I'll probably be wrong in 5-10 years from now, but I struggle to kind of see how that can grow to be what it's supposed to be, right? Whereas whether it's just better if you want to build some specific application that you actually build that specifically with the blockchain architecture underneath, rather just having like an abstract platform to create programs and whatnot. Although I in hindsight, I mean, as I'm saying this again, kind of I'm doubting, right? It might feel, it just feels straight way stupid because, at the end, that's what competition is for, right? Or sort of you build, it's like a generic, like programming, like it's a generic tool to build applications. Why should you, but it's kind of different because the abstraction path from a programming language down to the lowest levels of abstraction, it's more just machine code. It's not a platform abstraction. It's really just a language abstraction. Whereas here we're really talking about like an actual computational platform, right? which is what AWS is, and then Ethereum is kind of like trying to build that, I'd say. That's kind of why I really feel I've turned into this kind of, Bitcoin maximalist in a way, where, things like Filecoin, and, IPFS for file storage, like, it's exactly what I mean, right? It's just they could have built that on Ethereum, but they just went and built their own blockchain, because it's kind of what makes more sense, because you can build in the proof mechanisms in there that make sense for your specific needs, right? Yeah, but I'm, basically, it's like, I think, and I don't mean these to be, I didn't write this in a way that, like, it's not that I expect that the whole thing with the blockchain is supposed to be somehow a natural step of societal evolution or whatever, but it's a bit like what I say here, right? I think kings are needed. I think like in a way, like, pure democracy is really, really lacking that kind of, or it's really centered around, like, the alphas not being in charge, you know what I mean? And it almost feels it's a setup that's like, yeah, it's a stagnant, right? It's small increments here and there, and you kind of, you grow by breaking things. And that's not what a democracy is kind of geared to. A pure democracy is geared towards that. So anyway, but why am I even saying these, right? What is it? The thing is, like, what is it that I'm doing? Why am I doing this kind of research stuff? Because I like it. I mean, I don't know. Oh God, it's hard. It's really hard, because it's a bit of a mental crisis, right? In terms of, I want to keep doing these, and I will keep doing these, but it almost feels like I'm kind of lacking a guiding star, sort of, in a way. Give me a second, because I think I have to go open the door. There you go. So yeah, like, it's so hard, because it's ultimately, you're asking, like, I'm like, I keep constantly asking myself, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, what is it that I want to do, right? And it's such a deep question, because at the end of the day, it's like, got a good family, got a good kind of day job, but I'm like, there's something in there that's burning, and I'm like, I'd love to be building something, like, truly, valuable. And if I'm honest with myself, it's more about building kind of for the sake of building. So it has a bit of a more artistic component to these rather than just solving a problem. It almost feels like that this is what I'm looking for. Because if you build something, is, you know, you're building something either, you know, because you're trying to solve a problem, right? And, you know, and you have plenty of examples like these, right? You have, you know, Musk with all his companies. You have like, actually most of any like decently focused tech companies are, you know, are doing that, right? I mean, even just Facebook, Meta, whatever, like Twitter, whatever it is, right? There is a problem they're trying to solve, right? They're trying to kind of like, yeah, build that thing that solves, whether it's, maybe it's not solving, but it's like, you know, communication. To be honest, I don't know, because there's a bit of a difference, maybe, if you think about these, between like the social network type of things like Meta and Twitter. They're not specifically, I don't think they're specifically trying to solve a problem, but maybe this is a bit more like, that's what they're trying to do, is a bit more artistic or a bit more like humanistic, in a way of like, they're just, you know, they're trying to just build something for the sake of it, right? Something that will be just nice to have, like a you know, a global communications platform and stuff like that. It's not that Twitter, yeah, sure, I mean, I'm sure that the very first versions of it were like, oh yeah, it would be cool, like that solved that problem. It's kind of like the startup show of like, we solve these and that, but it's all just bullshit, just to, because you have to say something, right? Like Elon Musk companies are very specific towards very specific problems, or technological advances, right? So space exploration is like, we're fucking stacked. If he would not be doing that, we would just be really screwed up at the moment. He's doing that stuff with the rockets, blah blah, etc. The thing with the Boring Company as well, there's some specific challenges and problems, right? So we need to, you know, transportation, scale it properly, stuff like that. The same with Tesla, right? Like the whole thing with renewables, the whole thing with electric mobility, etc., etc. But Facebook and Twitter, if you think about these, they are a bit more like, I don't know, like I don't buy that they solve, or that they, you know, try to solve a problem, as in like philosophically, right? Like, we can't communicate globally, so we need a global communications platform. That is not what is it, because then they wouldn't be designed the way they are. Like Twitter is really generic, is really just a protocol in its core. You know, you tweet, right, and you consume content, and that's it, right? Like, it's not, you know, email was designed to solve a specific problem, which is distance communication. Twitter is not that. Like, Twitter is just, it turned sort of it turned out to be just a way of like sharing and communicating globally, and it's turning into this kind of like global brain and consciousness, right? Where, you know, there's just constantly these voices of like millions and billions of people, and bots, lots of bots. So essentially, I feel personally a bit more inclined towards this type of building. Like, I almost feel like, and maybe this is just out of laziness, right? But it's not maybe laziness, but it's more like I have this kind of a bit more of a, I call it an artistic inclination to building something, rather than just a practical inclination, right? Of saying, you know, I'm not, it's like, build a quantum computer, right? Maybe that is the reason why, yeah, I'm liking where this is going. That is the reason why I am not so much into topics like error correction, and to, you know, it's like, because this is geared towards a very specific problem, which is like, let's, you know, we can't model nature, right? So let's build a machine that helps us build, model nature, and it's a quantum computer. And then you get people like Craig Kidney and all these people like crazy going into like, the actual building of the QPUs and stuff like that. And I find these awesome. I just don't find myself so much inclined towards that. Like I in a way I have that, I feel the best way to express this is this kind of like, like an artistic vein to this, or like an artistic, because artistic is maybe the wrong word, right? But I'm trying to use it as in like sort of the orthogonal to solving a problem. It's more of building something kind of for the sake of it, for the sake of building it, right? Without trying to solve any specific problem, which is quite interesting, because it's a bit like what the research mentality is, I guess, right? Researching is just your research for the sake of it, because you want to learn new things, you want to expand the knowledge of humanity about the universe and stuff like that, and it's less about engineering something specific to solve a specific problem, which is fun. Like I'm definitely, that's something that definitely brings fun to me as well. But in a way I feel a bit more inclined like that. I think that's clear. I think I don't know if I'm super happy by saying this, but it seems to be, if I try to be the truest to myself, it seems to be the thing. It's like why am I doing it? Where I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? Not for the specifics of like, let's try to solve a specific problem, and then let's move on to the next problem. And it's more like about kind of the sake, for I don't know how to explain. I'm so bad at these. Okay, but this is something. This is something that it definitely helps me. It clears my head a bit more. Because whenever I get distracted with something like this Web3 shit, I should be kind of able to quickly identify that this is a tangent I don't want to go down to, right? Like not trying to solve a specific problem was like, oh, research shit, like people don't know how, like there's just the way research works currently, it doesn't work, whatever, so why not people do that and then create these data, whatever it is, and train AIs, and we don't have this data, I don't know, and it just feels a bit more like on the problem side of things rather than the artistic side of things. I don't know, maybe not. That is definitely an interesting. That was helpful to actually walk through this out loud. But then what is it that still, like, what does it mean, right? What does it mean to just do something for the sake of itself, in terms of research, for example, right? Like, what is it that what is it that you're working towards, right? Is it that you're working towards just understanding things better? I don't know. I'm sorry, this is probably the shittiest like live stream ever. It's just extremely complicated to walk through these thoughts, to walk like kind of walk through this mentally and just talk at the same time. To think about this a bit more. Maybe I'll do a bit of a Twitter thread on this, because it's easier maybe to write in this case. I don't know why, because probably I tend to be able to want to curate that a bit more, but essentially it's the same reason why I'm doing these as live streams and not just like edited videos about, hey, that's how you do A and B in quantum mechanics, blah blah blah, or in Qiskit, right? This kind of like more curated content, because that's about producing that specific tutorial, that specific, and this is, for me, it's more about like I want to share my learning journey in a way, right? And yeah. Yeah. But I keep hating myself, because as much as I feel that's the truest I can be to myself, I would like to just be a bit more problem oriented, right? Which is like, okay, we're solving a very specific problem, we're going to work 10 years on that, right? Which maybe this is what I'm passionate about. Maybe the problem that I have is that it's more like I'm easy. It's easy sometimes to give up, or because you're not really sure whether what you're doing is actually, worth doing. So it feels like you don't want to kind of waste your time, and so whenever there's doubt, then you give up. Whereas if you just, maybe that inclination of doing things a bit more from an artistic perspective, it's more like the, okay, I'm not I don't have to worry about failing, because it's not about achieving something specific. And maybe that is just another layer of laziness, or not laziness, but like excuse building, it's just another layer of building sort of excuses to myself, or for myself. Whereas really what you might want to do is actually solve a concrete problem. Really solve a concrete problem. And focus on these, right? And build something amazing. I don't know. It's not clear. It's definitely not clear. But I'm going to leave you guys now for today. I have to think about these a bit more in depth. Share maybe my thoughts. I'll promise that I won't stop streaming. I definitely won't stop. But if anything, I just have to have a bit of a more clear North Star in terms of what it is that I'm doing, right? What it is that I'm walking towards. Am I walking towards building a solution to a problem, or am I walking towards doing something a bit more for its own sake, right? Just pure research, right? Devote that to the specifics of just like focusing on this stuff. Anyway, I have to go. So see you next time.